I can. I'll start promptly at, so the mute button is that little mic on the bottom right. Yeah, I'll start exactly at 6. No worries. Welcome. Well, welcome to the GI Factor. We are here every Friday, normally 7 to 8 p.m., but in honor of Veterans Day, we are here earlier because we have a very, very special guest with us. Welcome to Shea. Thank you so much for joining. Would you like to, if you want to come to the stage, please raise your hand. The GI Factor is about all things women, veteran, entrepreneurship, and leadership. But today we are going to be graced with Dr. Tiffany. Tajiri. I think I got that right. Let me know if I got it wrong. But I'm so excited because guess what? We are broadcasting on LinkedIn. We are broadcasting on Facebook. We are broadcasting on the Wisdom app. And we have 6 people listening on the Wisdom app. Thank you, folks on Wisdom, for joining us. This is my first time trying this. I thought it would be awesome to let you all hear about some of the struggles and the triumphs of veterans from an expert, Dr. Tiffany. And so that's what I'm going to call her most of today. Tashea, if you would, on Clubhouse, I know this is a little early. We'll probably have more people joining at 7. So, Dr. Tiffany, we may ask you to repeat portions of your presentation. If you don't mind, would you please share with us? Hey, Lady Vaughn, and hello, Facebook and LinkedIn family. I want to ask Dr. Tiffany, before I introduce her, to start us out in the GI factor fashion. We ask everyone to start out with sharing their G4. And what does G4 means? It means greeting everyone, telling where you're geographically located, what you're grateful for, and then we ask people to share a goal that they have in the next 30 days. And you might say, why do we do that? Because we want to put in the atmosphere those things that we are so grateful and thankful for. And then also we want to share a goal because it has been seen solutions, resources, support, and collaboration have been realized since this room started about 6 or 7 months ago. So when we ask and we don't even know, and we say something that we're seeking to do, whether it's, to be on someone's podcast, to, write a book or whatever it is, the resources are always found in the room. So with that, Dr. Tiffany, thank you so much for joining us. And would you please share your G4? That's your greeting, your geography, what you're grateful for, and a goal. And then I'm going to introduce you.
Hello, my veteran family. Especially shout out to my ladies out there. So blessed to be here. I'm Dr. Tiffany Tajiri. I always go by Dr. Tiffany. So no problems with that. Geographic location, I live in El Paso, Texas. I work at Fort Bliss. And here are some of my goals for myself. Oh, grateful. Let me think about grateful. So grateful for God and having his love and blessing and anointing in my life, and the incredible family and the sisterhood that we have here and share. So grateful for that. And then finally, what is a goal? I would say one of my goals in the next month is to get the ball rolling on my next book and getting that chapter 1 out. I've written the proposal, fleshed it out, but get chapter 1 done. I feel like I'm just having a little bit of a writer's block, so pray for me. But that's my goal in the next month. Thank you so much. Over and out.
Hey, girl, you've been around the Army too long talking about over and out. You know, we Air Force don't say no over and out. But I love it.
For the Army.
I love it. You can't help it because guess what? I understand that the love of your life is Army, so no harm there. Tiffany is an Air Force veteran. And let me tell you, I met her recently and she gave a presentation and I just sat there with my mouth open because of her approach to just mental health, behavioral health, right? She is a licensed and board certified clinical psychologist. We already know that she is an Air Force veteran officer. She's the chief of the largest behavioral clinic at Fort Bliss, and we know these Army posts are huge. And she's the CEO and founder of Stand Up and Recover Incorporated, and she's the creator of the Rhythm Restoration and co-author of Abundant Recovery Curriculum at Abundant Church there in El Paso. She's got tremendous expertise. I love it. She's got background in family advocacy, uh, military transition and military life, Christian counseling, psychological counseling, PTSD, trauma, and recovery. She has expertise in neuroscience and neuroplasticity. And let me tell you, she is just a beast. And I can't wait. I bought her book, Peace After Combat. I can't wait to read it because I literally just met Dr. Tiffany. What was that, Saturday that we met? I think it was in Houston at the Lead and Empower Her conference, which was just amazing. And Dr. Tiffany was one of the keynote speakers. So with that, Dr. Tiffany, I'd like to turn it over to you. And like I said, because people will be joining throughout the session, I may do a reset and ask for you to repeat some of your key highlights of your presentation. But with that, let's go ahead and get going.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for that incredible introduction. That's so sweet of you. Today, I just want to talk to you about the magnificence of your incredible brain. And it's going to serve as an appetizer sampler of how incredible, how just beyond mind-blowing your mind is. So I don't know if most of you know this, but you can go 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, 3 minutes without oxygen, but you can't even go 3 seconds without thinking. Your brain generates more energy in one day than all.
Hello, did we lose you? Hello? Oh,
and that energy is impacting every single cell in your body. You ask, how does that happen? Well, your thoughts come from your mind, and your mind impacts your brain, and your brain controls your heart, and your heart creates the growth medium for every cell in your body. What is the growth medium? It is your blood, right? So your thoughts impact the DNA in each single one of your cells. So that's why it's so important for you to be holding your thoughts captive to good things. You know, from a Christian perspective, I always say holding your thoughts captive to Christ and the possibility instead of focusing on the negativity of life. You know, here's one thing I really want to point out is that you have 80 billion neurons in your brain, and that is similar to the number of stars in the night galaxy. And each one of those neurons is capable of making approximately 1,000 connections. That's right. So you have a night sky in your mind, and you are choosing the constellations that are created within it. So what choices are you making? What is the visual representation based on your mind? Now, there is a difference between your mind versus your brain. It's very important to know that. You say, how? Well, your brain is just the globular goop in your head. It's that meat, right? But it's the mind that brings intelligence. It's the mind that's the decision maker. It's the mind that is your free will that determines the neural connections that your brain is going to make. So you're going to notice there's a huge discrepancy between the mind versus the brain. You're going to learn that the mind is the most intelligent part of you, and the brain just follows your direction, okay? Let me give you a really cool example of the mind versus the brain and how sometimes the brain just doesn't quite catch up to the mind. So there's a phenomenon known as phantom limb, okay, or it's phantom pain. So some of our combat veterans, when they come back, unfortunately, from war, I mean, praise God they're returning because we want them here and alive, but some, unfortunately, are missing an arm or a leg. And one of the pains that they experience is something called a phantom pain. It's almost like the arm that's gone is still hurting, and they just don't understand why. They know their arm is gone, but it's still in chronic pain every now and again. And so one of the most interesting things is that we do a form of mirror therapy on that. How do you do mirror therapy? So you put a mirror in between your body, right? So you see the arm that is present, but you see it also in the reflection of the mirror. So it tricks your mind into thinking that the arm that's missing is actually there. So they start to free the movement in the arm that's working, and then they see it on the other side symmetrically just through the mirror, and it tricks their brain. It tricks their brain, right? So then the brain gets to rewire its somatosensory cortex to recognize, hey, the arm's no longer there. But that's just how intelligent your mind is versus your brain, and how you have to get your brain to be programmed and be congruent with your mind. Okay, so here are some really just fun things about the power of your mind and your imagination. So Dr. Kelly Cole proved that imagining using one's muscles actually strengthens them. Yes, ladies, imagine that. It's like imagining a six pack or dreaming about a six pack and waking up with one. It's pretty phenomenal. We should all try it. But needless to say, and a group imagined doing muscular exercises, right? Specific exercises. Another group didn't. They actually did the physical exercises. And then, of course, there was a cohort that did nothing at all. And in the end, those individuals who imagined the exercise had 22% muscular strength gain in those areas. Yet those who actually did the exercise gained 30%, of course, more because they actually did the physical exercise. So we ask how? How? How do you imagine an increased muscular strength gain? Well, you're increasing the firing between the neurons and the motor cortex, the neurons that fire together, wire together. So the connections are more efficient, they're more effective, and they're significantly faster. And so that's why we see that muscular strength gain. Back in the day, there was a Russian activist by the name of Natan Sharansky, and he was in a sensory deprivation prison for 13 years. Now, he's very intelligent, and he knew that he would die because of the lack of sensory stimulation. And so he thought, what am I going to do? How am I going to stay alive? How am I going to get my mind working? So he decided he was going to play mental chess in his head. Think of the Queen's Gambit, right? Playing mental chess in your head. So he did this for the entire duration of his imprisonment. And when he came out, guess what he decided he was going to do? He says, well, you know what? I think I am just going to beat the world champion chess player. And so he did. Incredible how the mind works when we're paying particular attention to it and we're noticing the thoughts that are manifesting in our minds and being mindful of everything we do. So in 1954, a man by the name of Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile. Everybody said it was completely and absolutely impossible. The physician said, well, if you were to do it, it would have to be under the most perfect of all conditions. Perfect conditions include perfect weather, perfect track, perfect shape, right? And everything had to be just so. But you know what? Roger Bannister was in the middle of medical school. If I remember what I was like in the middle of graduate school, I was certainly not in physical shape. And he did it on a rainy day because he believed he could, the power of his mind. But I think the most precious gem from the story is that just a few weeks later, after he was the first to break the 4-minute mile, guess what happened? Multiple runners ended up breaking the 4-minute mile. And that just goes to show you what we place on our mind as boundaries can truly limit us. But if we remove the boundaries from our mind, so many things are just within our reach. We are so much more capable than we actually fathom. You know, as a trauma specialist for the past decade, right, I've been working with PTSD and combat PTSD, no less, all sorts of trauma, complex trauma, childhood, sexual abuse trauma, sexual assault, you name it. I have worked with it. And so what I see is the brain is always looking for closure. It's always looking for wholeness and completion and for peace. We have intrusive memories when traumatic events occur. We have intrusive nightmares. And we ask ourselves, why am I having these intrusive memories or these nightmares? Some people even go as far as say, is God punishing me for something? And you can't get these thoughts out of my head. Well, no, it's your brain doing a service to you. Subconsciously, it's pulling those memories forward because the brain is literally saying, these memories, they're toxic. They're poison. We got to remove the toxicity and the poison from your brain. So it brings it forward so you can process it and digest it. Like I said earlier, the brain is always searching for a sense of wholeness and closure. Think of the phantom limb concept. The brain was searching for closure. It needed to see a complete body map image through the mirror therapy in order to have closure. It had to seek wholeness. And so the same thing goes with any traumatic experience. We need to make a sense of peace with it. It's not justifying it. It's not rectifying the situation or the traumatic event saying it was right. That's not by all means, but we have to find a way to make peace. And so that's what I've been doing for the past decade, is trying to get people to find ways to have peace with their traumatic life experiences. You know, the hallmark trait of PTSD is avoidance. We don't want to talk about it. We stop it, right? But what we have to do is we have to bring it to our awareness in order to process it and digest it. You know, the brain, it's just like the gut. It has to digest. experiences as the gut digests food. I always think of a traumatic event in our lives. Think of it like a huge Italian meal, but you can never process it, like, ever. And it's just sitting in your stomach. How sick would you get? That's almost poisonous. You feel disgusting emotionally and physically. It's the same thing with the trauma. If something so toxic remains undigested in our minds, our spirit and our soul are absolutely impacted. We need to find a way to bring peace to it. So how do we bring peace to a traumatic experience? Got to pull the memory out, right? We got to pull that traumatic experience from the fear center of our brain. It's stored in the amygdala. We got to take it from the amygdala and bring it to the frontal lobe. And we need to start dissecting it. You know, humans have this concept of the multi-perspective advantage that no other animal species can do. We can look at things from a multitude of angles in our problem-solving process. And through a process of creative reconceptualization by bringing peace to a trauma, imagining the outcome that you wish could have happened and bringing closure through imagination, right? Or we could bring closure through understanding that when all we see is our pain, we can't see the beauty of how God's moving in our life. You know, if you're spiritual, it's the universe moving. If you're Christian, it's Jesus, it's God working in your favor. So many people only see the pain and suffering. They can only focus on the poison, but the reality is, in the middle of the pain and in the middle of the suffering, there were good things still happening, right? The universe was still working in your favor. Things still manifested in ways to help you get through. You know, if you believe in God, God put the right people, the right places, the right time, situations, divine connections you needed for that recovery. And when you're able to start seeing it from a different perspective, pulling essentially the poison from the traumatic experience, you actually change the form of the memory all the way down to the physical substrate, all the way down to the DNA. So you have definitely recoded that memory. And when you do that, it doesn't go back into the fear center of your brain known as the amygdala. It instead goes back into the regular long-term memory, which is known as the hippocampus. From a spiritual perspective, you know, my book is entitled Peace After Combat, Healing the Spiritual and Psychological Wounds of War. And the original title of the book was actually, Where is God in War? Because that was the biggest question I would get from my combat veterans sitting across from me. Now, we believe that there's no atheist in a foxhole, but when we return, we start to second guess because of the things we saw. And so I give them this basic algorithm. Well, if you're a Christian, number one is no one's immune to the suffering of the pain of the world, not even Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, right? He endured the cross, so we may endure whatever comes our way from a Christian view. But when we look at it, what I've come to understand as a clinical psychologist is that our creator, whoever that may be in your book, neurobiologically wired us to love and be loved. And that is the purpose, in my opinion, my humble opinion. Our purpose is to be able to love, you know, to create a loving atmosphere, to connect, to show compassion, right? And so with that being said, in order to have love, we have to have relationship. In order to have a relationship, we have to have free will. So I always tell my service members, hey, you know, God's never going to take away your free will. You're a vessel, and you can do one of two things. You can pour love and light into your heart and pour that out, or you can allow darkness to come in and consequently pour that out to other people and hurt other people, you know, despite, you know, your own selfishness.
So,
and
Dr.
so with all that being
Dr. Tiff,
said, yes?
Can I jump in and reset the room? Because people who have recently joined, I just want them to know what we're talking about, who you are. So before we proceed, is that okay? Or did you need to finish your last thought?
Absolutely.
Did you need to finish it?
No, by all means.
Okay. We have the pleasure of spending a couple of hours with Dr. Tiffany Tajiri, Air Force veteran and officer, certified clinical psychologist. And you're going to get to ask some questions, maybe get some, some clarity on some things. But, you know, as I was listening to you, some of the things that I really thought about is, you know, just how you bring the spiritual piece to closure and recovery. And a lot of it you talked about, veterans, avoid, coming to closure. And a lot of that has to do with the stigma that is still out there, tied to mental health. and that, the recovery is a journey that the brain can enable when we have the right strategies and tools. So again, this is the GI Factor. We are broadcasting from Clubhouse, the Wisdom app, LinkedIn, Facebook, and it is an honor to have Dr. Tiffany here and share her knowledge and insight about what we can do to get on the road to recovery, to move out and not burn out. Because as we know, if you are a veteran, period, you have those, everybody has their issues in different ways, at different levels. And then if you enter into being a business owner, there are the stresses in addition to those that go along with that. And so after your next, session and insight into this very, complex and intriguing aspect of how our brain works in the recovery process, I'd like to get some folks to come up and ask questions, or I have a few. So with that, thank you so much, and go ahead, Dr. Tiffany.
I appreciate the reset. Thank you so much. So with that being said, we were talking about how the brain processes trauma. And I think it's important for you to understand some of the science behind spirituality. So my book is a faith-based book. It's Christian-centric. The publisher is David C. Cook. They're the largest non-denominational Christian publisher in the world. But let me give you some background information about spirituality. There are huge neuroprotective benefits for being spiritual. You're 80% less likely to become depressed. You have an increase in the happy molecules in your brain known as norepinephrine, dopamine, and serotonin. And that is fantastic. They've also noticed that the weight of a person's brain who is spiritual is much heavier than one who isn't. And they believe that weight is a neuroprotective factor. They've noticed that much of the weight accounted for comes from the parietal lobe of your brain. And that's the area of your brain that is responsible for situational awareness, your spatial awareness. And it's what they tend to interpret as it's larger because they find that spiritual people are more selfless. They're more giving. They're not inclined to selfish behaviors, but rather selfless and operating in the realm of love. So those are some interesting notes. We also have discovered from the concept of spirituality that spirituality is indeed the greatest protective factor when it comes to suicide prevention. And so with that being said, I was talking about helping my service members from a Christian perspective understand that God is on their side, that God wasn't the author of the bad things. I believe that if you believe that God wills the things that are negative in your life, it's going to be a place for you to get stuck, a place for you to feel negative. And that continued negative thought process is really toxic for your whole body at large. So what I was explaining earlier is that God neurobiologically wired us to love and be loved. And so we were created for love. In order to have love, we have to have relationship. In order to have relationship, we have to have free will. And so God is not going to take away our free will. So every day we have the choice to choose love or light. In Deuteronomy, it says, I put before you blessing or cursing, life or death. So choose life so that you and your descendants may live. And sometimes we choose death, not necessarily in a literal sense, but negative behaviors, negative thoughts are toxic, right? We can equate that with the idea of death. And so God's not going to control us. He didn't create us to be robots or automatons. He gave us free will. It's part of the reasons why we were made in his image. And so I help my vets understand that God isn't the author of the bad things that happened on their deployments, that bad guys made bad decisions. But I tell them this, hey, Jesus wasn't immune to the suffering of the world. Neither are you, okay? But he will do this. He will turn beauty for ashes, right? He will make a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland so that you can recover and that you can be restored, okay? So that's how I get them to understand how to process trauma. We talked about the neuroscientific aspect. Now we're talking about the spiritual part. I believe firmly that we are spiritual beings in human bodies, right? We are the spirit, the soul, and the flesh, and we can't ignore any one of those aspects, and nor can we act as if those aspects are treated in a silo. They interact with one another, so we have to all bring them to light. So with all that being said, what I do is a form of treatment known as rhythm restoration. It's a form of treatment I created just for the sake of time, I'm not going to break down all the nitty gritty of the neuroscience behind it. But irregardless, the idea is that I have my veterans re-script their trauma. So, for example, if they lost their battle to an IED, right, or a rocket or a mortar attack, and they start to blame themselves, right, saying I should have, could have, would have, had I known, or if I had a crystal ball to predict the future, blah, blah, blah. They're stuck on the toxicity of the event. What I do is I have them visualize the service member they lost in heaven. What would that service member say to you? You would see them whole and healed and restored. They would tell you how much they love you and to stop beating yourself up. They would say, I don't want you to remember the last moments of my life physically broken, but rather remember me for the times I made you laugh so hard you pissed your pants. So it's reframing, creative reconceptualizing the memory and changing it so it no longer has that sense of toxicity to it. And that's basically it. Like, that's in a nutshell. Like, I don't want to keep rambling on because I can, but I'm much more interested in what questions the audience may have for me. So I'll turn that back to you, Michelle, in which direction you want to go.
Awesome. Awesome. Hold on. Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, first of all, I want to thank you for just sharing your time with us. We're here with Dr. Tiffany Tajiri, clinical psychiatrist, psychologist out of El Paso, Texas, Air Force veteran. She's written a book, Peace After Combat. And so, first of all, before you can find peace, how do we make it okay for people to come and ask for help? What if you, let's say, I'm sure you've had some troops who didn't come see you willingly, and how did you get them, in the mindset that they needed help?
Sure. I believe people will come in for various reasons. Sometimes spouses drag their partners in, right? Or they come in for command-directed evaluations because they're not doing so well. Or they come in voluntarily, or they're medically referred because they've been drinking, or, you name it. There's a multitude of reasons. But I think it's just pulling down the stigma of behavioral health and recognizing that, hey, what you're experiencing is completely normal. Your brain is trying to process and digest a trauma. In fact, your brain is having indigestion with these experiences. So that's okay. That's normal. Let's process it together. I think it's normalizing. I think the beautiful trend that we're now seeing is that people are coming in with no shame, coming in and saying, hey, I need help. And I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. But one of the problems that is coming up with this now is that we don't have enough behavioral health providers across the globe to meet the needs and the demands of people who are seeking behavioral health treatment. It's a very fascinating shift. In the years before, it's like we were trying to drum up business, but now it's like, oh my goodness, now we're having to take our business and outsource it to the networks outside of TRICARE because so many people are requesting services, which is such a blessing. We're having to put so many more hires in for new positions in the realm of behavioral health so that we can get the service members the help they need. So yes, I mean, it's bringing down that stigma, and we're already seeing this incredible trend of people speaking out about behavioral health and it no longer being something that is as taboo as it once was.
So is there a move of any, like other kinds of, counseling, right? Like there's music therapy, some people use animals. There's all these different, ways or different, methods. Is there any move towards that?
I love different treatment modalities because it requires you to use your brain in different ways, right? So art therapy, you're certainly using the right hemisphere, the creative part of you, and that is so powerful. There's hippotherapy or equine therapy, if I'm saying it correctly, where you work with horses. Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much. And people love it, that sense of connection. I think there is evidence for most things that operate in love and light. And when you engage those, you're going to find some sort of healing, and it's going to tap one area of you that another form of treatment may not have. So we definitely have to be open-minded to it and broaden our scope of treatment.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Before, would anyone like, if you want to raise your hand and ask any questions over on Clubhouse, please, please do so. And come on up and ask, because, what I have found is that, as women are in business, they are still juggling, the caretaker of their either their spouse, their relatives, or their children. And then they also are, trying to balance building a business and, experiencing, sexism, sometimes ageism, or, just this environment where they're supposed to go and learn and get resources. They're faced with, not necessarily welcome kinds of environments. So what do you have any advice for business owners, because many of them are service disabled veteran owned businesses, right? Because that's what gives them, the opportunity for contract set asides and narrowing their competition. So any insight on, in real time, they have a trigger. Is there any method that you would recommend to help them until they can help themselves before they, until they can get to professional help?
Sure. I think that we need to take the time to take care of ourselves. Self-care is so important. The things that help you to decompress. I'm a total introvert. So decompressing means being at home and oftentimes binge watching Netflix, right? Or going for a walk or a run or a hike. You need to build that time in for yourself. I'm a firm believer in the power of bilateral stimulation, which is one of the components of rhythm restoration. And bilateral stimulation is a way to help our brains process. We do it organically in REM sleep, known as rapid eye movement. When our eyes move back and forth in our head, we're actually processing and digesting the experiences that we've had. And you may notice that in REM sleep, you can have nightmares because the brain's trying to say, hey, this event in your life or this memory in your life is toxic. You need to fix it because it's unhealthy for your entire being. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was this power of epigenetics. The understanding that we used to believe that we are victims to our DNA, we're victims to our genes, but that is not the truth. That's not what science is finding. We do believe that our genes are blueprints, right? And our genes act as blueprints, and they're just that. You can't turn on or off a blueprint. You either go by a blueprint or you don't. You make adjustments to a blueprint. So what I'm trying to say is that your genes have a vote in the outcome of your physical being in life, but it's not the only vote. The environment that you're in has a vote. How you see yourself, how you engage in self-care has a vote, right? Your spirituality, your faith, your belief system, how you view yourself, others, and the world at large has a vote to determine whether or not a gene of negativity will manifest itself in your life. One of the interesting things we find is that cancer and heart disease, there is not a large hereditary link to either one of those. In fact, it's less than 5%. And oftentimes we believe that cancer or heart disease can come from disharmony in our own minds, disharmony in our own life, disharmony in our own spirituality. So their goal in life should be to strive for harmony and whatever brings you that, right? So whether it's prayer, whether it's meditation, whether it's deep breathing techniques when you feel triggered, because deep breathing is fantastic, right? It actually helps to trigger the vagus nerve in your brain, and that regulates your autonomic nervous system to calm you down. It reduces that fight or flight reaction. But it's so important how you view your world, how you view yourself, telling yourself or saying, I'm so stupid, I'm so ridiculous. Like, even though in your mind you may not really truly believe that, but you're telling that to your brain and you're speaking that over your body. And that is so toxic. If you don't feel good, like, if you're PMSing and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel so disgusting. So when I'm PMSing, I totally feel awful. But this is what I tell myself. I say, I'm beautiful. I feel good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm beautiful. I feel good, right? Over and over again. And I don't get stuck. I notice that my body feels healthier when I do that than when I just perseverate on how bloated I am, right? Or how moody I am, or how many crazy.
I'm sorry, Dr. Tiff, did we lose you? I don't hear you. Hopefully we did. For those of you who have just joined, welcome to the GI Factor. We are on Clubhouse every Friday, normally from 7 to 8 p.m. But we have a special guest with us, Dr. Tiffany Tajiri, certified psychologist, who is the chief of the largest
Speaking over our life.
Oh, okay. Here she's back. Okay. We lost you for a minute. Sorry about that. So glad. I was just resetting the room. And thanks, Renita, for coming up. We have another Air Force veteran and great leader, Renita Alexander. Hey, lady, you have a question?
I do. Thank you so much for inviting me up, and what a great guest you have. The name of my book is Just Breathe. So I use the breathing techniques as a way to help my clients. But I do have a question.
Before you go into your question, can you please tell us, do the G4? You've already greeted everybody. If you would tell us where you're geographically located, what you're grateful for, and a goal, and then go on in a goal for the next 30 days, and then go on into your question.
Absolutely. I am geographically located in Chicago. I live right downtown Chicago, very close to Lake Michigan. So that's part of my therapy every day. I am just grateful to, grateful to be here. I celebrate my 63rd birthday in less than a month. I have a trip planned for Vegas. And I'm just grateful just to be here in this time where there's just so much disruption and disease and death and destruction. So I'm grateful to be here. My goal is to finish out the year strong. I'm actually doing a masterclass myself right now. It's kind of more of a learning thing. I'm using some new systems. Just to finish out the year strong and get ready for 2022 because we are less than 60 days away. Okay, so my question is, I have clients that say, the whole thinking and using the words of affirmation don't work for them. And yet I see them saying the negative things about themselves that for some reason it's so much easier to believe. And so how can I encourage people to, to disrupt the rumination, the negative thought patterns that they have when they're thinking the negative things about themselves with something that's positive that doesn't seem cheesy? I love it. Thank you so much for the incredible work that you do and for caring for so many people. Wow, it's a great question. And here's what I recommend is that we just need to be exceptionally mindful of how we're thinking. We go into autopilot when it comes to our thought processes. Negative toxic patterns that we learned in childhood begin to get repeated. They actually are stored in our subconscious level. And so when we go on autopilot, we go straight to the subconscious. And that's a tendency to repeat negative patterns that we have observed over the years from ourselves or from our primary caregivers. Those are the platforms and the neural networks that were wired back in the day, right? So we tend to go there. We will think about the one time we were totally humiliated in class, and we'll go back to that old neural network if we are not consciously aware and mindful of how we're thinking. So I always encourage my patients, whenever a negative thought comes to their mind, I ask them, number one, notify what time of day is this manifesting? Are you hungry? How are you feeling? What's going on right now that made you think this way? Dissecting that thought so that you can identify the pattern of your negative thinking and you can jump ahead of it. The idea being, and I don't necessarily think it's cheesy, but perhaps the idea being, if you notice what you're doing, accountability is huge. stop what you're doing and say the opposite. Speak love over yourself and light over yourself, right? So if I say, I'm just, like I was talking about earlier, I don't know if you heard me or not, if I got cut out. But when I'm PMSing, my go-to is, oh, I feel so ugly. Oh, I'm so gross. It's like this chronic thought in my head, oh, these cravings are so annoying. I feel so bloated, or whatever the situation may be. The more I fixate on that, the worse I feel and the more moody I get. Just ask my husband. But the reality is, what I should be speaking over myself is, yes, I'm PMSing. That's natural. So grateful my body's healthy. I love my body. It's a good body. This is normal. I'm okay. I am blessed. I am beautiful. I am blessed. I am beautiful. Keep pushing forward. Don't get stuck, because those negative ruminations are so toxic. I tell my patients, it's not just, we're not just engaged with people in the physical realm, but we're also fighting a spiritual and psychological warfare in our own brain. So don't let the enemy win, the toxicity demon, say, I'm not this, I am this. From a Christian perspective, I believe that God has called us to be wonderful things. And so we have to reframe that, to say, God has called me to be beautiful. God has called me to be blessed.
Amazing. Thank you so much for all of that. I agree with everything that you said, and I'll be incorporating that into some of the discussions I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Renita, powerhouse U.S. Air Force veteran, retired colonel, CEO of Leadership Unlocked. Thank you so much for your service and for gracing us with your question. Next, we have Allie. Allie is just another powerhouse I met at the Lead and Empower Her conference. And Allie has built a network of, I don't know, I think it may, correct me if I'm wrong, over 40,000 women across the U.S., all about business and networking and supporting each other. So Allie, please tell us, one, G4, I already said your name, where you're geographically located, what you're grateful for, and what a 30-day goal is, and ask your question. Thank you.
Yes, hello, GI and Dr. Jerry. So nice to hear you speak again. I've had a great time listening to you in Houston. I am geographically located in Gilbert, Arizona. I am grateful for just what you said, this amazing group of women across the country that I've been able to bring together, women supporting women. I'm grateful for that every day. One of my pretty much my only 30-day goal at this point, I have a television streaming network, and we are hard launching January 1st. So we are marching towards that, and we are on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, Roku, all Apple and Android devices, and we're just trying to load the network up with amazing voices and content creators who have a message that positively impacts lives and communities, raise their messages and make a positive impact together, leave a legacy of integrity. And my question, hopefully I'm not cutting out. My phone just told me I had a bad internet connection. My question is, I don't know if Dr. Tajiri heard me speak in Houston, but I often, when I do my public speaking, both locally and on the road, I speak a lot about my history with domestic violence. And certainly a lot of things you were saying before with combat veterans, I think also resonates to women that have been through violence, domestic violence or sexual violence or any of those sorts of things. And so often I'm approached after my talks with questions about that. Do you have any advice, things I can, any words of wisdom I can pass on to women who are looking to me as a, as a beacon of light in that area?
That's so powerful. I'm so proud of you, sister. You are so anointed. And that is quite an incredible population to be working with. I think one of the things that you should highlight is an idea of twisted guilt. Okay. So I use this concept of twisted guilt to explain a lot of situations. So now there's true guilt, right? When you feel guilty about a situation because you acted in a way that was wrong. And you did, right? So there's true guilt and twisted guilt. So the true guilt, well, let me just start with this. There's nothing we can control in life. The only thing we can control are our own thoughts, our emotions, and our behaviors. Everything else is external. It's influence, right? So for true guilt, that's when you can control yourself. Let's say I got home from work, I met up with my husband, and I was just in total angry mode, saying things that were just goofy and out of key. I noted it. I apologize. So that's true guilt. But then there's twisted guilt, like a manipulated, manufactured guilt. It's having guilt for a circumstance that you truly did not have much control over whatsoever, that your influence was exceptionally low. And so I believe that for anybody who is a survivor of sexual assault, they have this sense of twisted guilt, the sense of I should have, I could have, I would have, had I done this. They start to blame themselves instead of the person who perpetrated against them and hurt them. I tell them, you can't blame yourself. Have empathy for yourself, right? If you don't have compassion for you at large, your compassion is incomplete. You may have compassion for so many other people and people who've gone through the similar experiences, but you don't have compassion for yourself. It's incomplete and it's toxic. So don't have twisted guilt. To the best of your ability, be able to see that you did what you could do and to focus on the strength that you had and the courage you had to get out of these toxic and abusive relationships. One of the visualizations that I do with individuals who have gone through such hardship is once they start to recover and they start to feel better about themselves, they may feel good about where they're at today and they may see their gains and their accomplishments. And I encourage them to visualize their accomplishments, to list out their blessings, the things that they have done in their lives to transform themselves is so incredible, right? But they still have a lot of anger towards the young girl who stayed in that abusive relationship. So one of the visualizations I actually have them do is your now self. I want your now self to go back to that extremely painful situation wherein after you were abused, I want you to go that girl that was you in your now version, your empowered version of you. Go back to that girl who was hurting. And I want you to love on her, to give her the support that she needed, that she couldn't get, to tell her that it's going to be okay and you're going to be free and that you love her and understand where she's going. But the best part is that there is going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. And so when they bring the current version of themselves, right, who they are right now and how they've become empowered, have they had the courage to escape, to get out and to make a way where they believe that there wasn't, then they can heal with that past self that they've been pointing the finger at, that past self that they don't like. Because the two of those selves are the same, but the current self has to have compassion for the past self so that they can come together in harmony. Because if we don't like a part of who we are, that's really extremely toxic. We have to have compassion for that part of ourselves. And I believe as a Christian woman that as God gives me grace, God gives me forgiveness, I also have to extend that to myself. And if God forgives me and gives me grace for the goofy things I do in my life or whatever it may be, then I also have to have compassion for myself. If God's already forgiven me, who am I not to forgive myself? And so to bring that amends and to bring that healing, bring those two versions of women back together because they need to stand united and together they're much stronger.
Thank you. Such great advice. Yes, it's exactly what not exactly, but you said it so much more eloquently. But yes, what I try to say is, be the person, be the friend to yourself that you are to other women who have gone through, the same situation as you have. Do what you say to yourself, what you would say to somebody else, and be your own, your own best, biggest supporter and friend, in that.
Wow. Thank you so much, Allie and Dr. Tiffany. I want to reset the room for those who are just joining us on the Wisdom app, the Clubhouse app, LinkedIn, and Facebook. This is the GI Factor. We are here normally every Friday from 7 to 8 p.m. where we are all things women, veteran entrepreneurship, and leadership, and things that that resources, information, inspiration, collaboration, all of those things. And we're so honored to have Dr. Tiffany Tajiri with us, Tajiri, sorry, with us from El Paso, Texas. She is the chief of the largest behavioral clinic at Fort Bliss, Texas. She has written a book, Peace After Combat, which brings mental health and spiritual health together to facilitate recovery. We've had some great questions. We had questions from Renita Alexander, who is the CEO of Leadership Unlocked and also an Air Force veteran and officer who has, experienced not only supporting her troops, but she's now extending that experience that she got in the Air Force to helping future leaders, future and current leaders. And then we just had a question from Allie, who is the CEO and founder of Moxie, a group of more than 40,000 women across the country. She started this amazing community of support and networking, and it all stemmed out of her domestic abuse and also from her just being different. Allie is I think she's over 6 feet, so just standing out and just not knowing that she is special. And she has taken, those challenges and created this amazing network. And I met her recently, her and Dr. Tiffany, at the Lead and Empower Her conference. And we will be going to Panama City, Florida, the first weekend in December. So hope to see you there. Now, another girlfriend of mine, Air Force is running, and I don't know where these Army vets are, Navy vets are, but raise your hand and come on to the stage. We have Jolisa Dudley. She is a leader extraordinaire. She has worked and led pilots and run all of their support entities. She is a divorce coach, and she is an amazing woman with a beautiful spirit, and I'm honored to call her friend. So, hey, lady. Hey, Jolisa, you there?
Yes, hey, I was trying to figure out how to turn my microphone. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, G.I. And thank you so much, Dr. Tajiri. I want to make sure I'm saying that correctly.
Before you get started,
what's the protocol again, G.I.?
Yeah, I was going to say, before you get started, please share your G4. You've greeted everyone. Tell where you're geographically located, what you're grateful for, and a 30-day goal.
Yes, so I'm geographically located in Fort Washington, Maryland, which is right outside of Washington, D.C. My goals for the next 30 days, I am in a process of just trying to really make sure that I'm in receive mode. Non-striving kind of thing. I have a lot of things going on right now in my life, professionally and personally, and so I feel like I'm at a crossroads, and I'm getting a lot of information. I'm also getting an extraordinary amount of confirmation from what I'm hearing tonight, and so. But I also know that I have to be very careful. So that I don't overwhelm or over stress myself, because one of the things that I'm dealing with is caregiving of my mother who has onset dementia. And what was the last one, Dia?
What are you grateful for?
What am I grateful for? Oh, I'm grateful for the fact that I can work from home, especially as a caregiver. I'm extremely grateful for the fact that I can work from home. And also that a lot of the work that I did ahead in terms of serving the 20 years in the military and my position within the federal government allow me the flexibility and the financial, some of the financial freedom to be able to provide some support for my mom. My mom, she has her own, she has her own purse, so to speak, but at the same time, with all of the things that are going on in the world in terms of her finances, she still needs some extra support. So I'm just grateful to be able to provide that support to her. When I talked about confirmation, and GI and Renita can probably attest to this. I know GI could attest to this. I find my signature block. I work at the Department of Veterans Affairs, and I find my signature block love and light. And I've been doing that for the better part of a year. One of the things you just talked about, I believe, answered the question that I had to ask, that I wanted to ask, and it was related to this idea of the value of shadow work, which is being able to recognize both sides of who we are and integrate those personalities. So my other question is, what are your thoughts? You know, I think you mentioned something that I believe firmly, and that is we are, but I don't want to put words in your mouth, and that is we are, our spirits having a human experience, or at least that's my perception of it. And but within that concept, if that's true, you know, there are absolutely certain lessons that we came back to learn. What are your thoughts around that?
I love that. Thank you so much for everything you do for the community. And I'm just praying for your mom and you, and for you to have the continued strength. What a blessing you are to your mother. My goodness. We pray continually for your strength. But needless to say, I believe firmly we are spiritual beings in human bodies. Now I take my perspective from a Christian approach. And just as from a Christian approach, God is broken down in the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. We are broken down in such a way that we are the Spirit. He who is in me is greater than he who is in the world. The Spirit, right? Number one, leads the way. What surrenders to the Spirit is our soul, and our soul is our personality. It's our free will. It's how we choose to maneuver in life, right? The choices that we make, whether we allow love and light to lead the way, or whether we allow selfishness and darkness to manifest, right? So our soul, and what surrenders to our soul is our flesh, and our flesh is our body. And what I've noticed is that the louder our flesh and our soul become, it's harder to hear the Spirit. Now, the Spirit, I believe firmly, is the perfect part of us. It's the part that seeks harmony. It's the part that seeks wisdom. It's the part of us that wants peace, right? I always say the Spirit leads with a peace compass, and you have to decide what direction you're going to go in. Does this bring me spiritual peace? Is a question you should always be asking yourself. If it doesn't, you're going to feel incongruent. And whenever there's incongruence, you're going to feel anxiety. So I believe firmly that the Spirit has got to lead, the soul has got to follow, and so does the flesh, because we want the Spirit to be the loudest. And in order for it to be the loudest, we have to quiet the soul and the flesh. Just think about it. When I'm hungry, I call it hangry, right? When I'm hangry, I'm not in my most spiritual self, right? When I'm in pain, I'm not in my most spiritual self, right? Mm-hmm. When all we are is seeking the hedonism of the world, we're clearly not in our most spiritual self. Mm-hmm. So we have to quiet the flesh and the soul. The soul is oftentimes thought processes, even the negative ones that we make find ourselves in a negative feedback loop over and over. We've got to quiet those too so that the Spirit can lead. And
That's
it goes.
Beautiful. I love the way you said that. That is beautiful.
Thank you
sorry,
so much.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but that was so
no
beautiful.
Worries.
Oh my gosh.
I'm glad you love it. You know, it actually continues to break down. So when you think about it, when you see the spiritual person, there's the second part, like a second column. If you think of a second column, it's our thoughts, our emotions, and behaviors, right? Those manifest within the soul. And so our thoughts come first, and they dictate our emotions and our thoughts dictate our behaviors. So we always have to recognize that just like the Spirit needs to lead in the world of our soul, our thoughts need to lead the way, not our emotions.
Wow.
because if our emotions lead the way, like right now, I keep talking about PMSing, probably because I'm PMSing. And right now I feel like totally gross and totally just not me right now. You can only thank God we're not on video because I would slam myself up, I'm sure. But needless to say, like when you don't feel good, it doesn't mean just because I feel ugly right now doesn't mean I'm ugly. Just because I feel incompetent doesn't mean I am incompetent. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes perfect sense. And as I'm listening to you, I'm actually having another thought because, believe it or not, I have a senior at Howard. My daughter is, she's a senior at Howard. She's majoring in music therapy. And, it's hard, if you think being the parent and getting your child to listen to you, it can be hard sometimes. You definitely don't want to try and coach your child. But she's dealing with some of those issues that you talk about, and this is something that I really want her to hear. So I will definitely be getting your book, and hopefully I think this is being recorded because I really want her to listen to several things that you said tonight because I want her to get grounded in those things, and I'm not sure that she'll be able to hear it from me right now, and she needs to hear it a lot sooner, in my opinion.
She's absolutely blessed to have you as a mom. That's for certain. One of the things I recommend when working, with your kids, and I recommend this for my mother. I don't think she's listening right now. So for her to ask permission for, would you mind if I gave you some advice? Are you amenable to advice right now? Or I have some food for thought that I think might be applicable to your life. When you feel ready to listen, let me know. Because we're not always in a place where we want to listen. We're not always in a place where we are receptive. And so when you ask or tell somebody something that you want to convey to them and they're not in that receptive state, then they continue to stonewall you over time, right? So you kind of got to make sure that whatever thought you have, the seed that you're planting, that is going to be planted in good soil.
Yes, I receive that. And that's outstanding. And I've never thought about asking her that from that perspective because, of course, she's my child. It's like, listen to me. But as she's getting older, it is becoming a little bit more challenging, and that's okay because I do want her to be her own person, at the end of the day. But, I think it's natural, too, that as a mother, you want to spare your child, as much heart. You naturally want to spare your child, heartache and suffering and lessons that, it's like, no, you really don't have to learn that one, trust me. And so that, I think that's where the rub is sometimes. But, she writes, she sings, she plays piano and guitar. And I've been really pleased to see how she has taken some of the things when I thought she wasn't listening and put them to music. So I'm just a little concerned, though, as we go forward, that there's still some of the things that you stated tonight in terms of the order and what you need to quiet the flesh and then the soul, that order. I really want her to get something like that. So that was super powerful. But I don't want to dominate the conversation. This is really good stuff. And so I'm just honored to be able to listen to you tonight. And thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. No, you're not dominating. I mean, if anyone else would like to come to the stage, this is the GI Factor. We are here every Friday, 7 to 8 p.m. This is GI Gardner-Ince. I tell everybody it's a first name, it's a last name, it is a noun, it is a verb, and it may have even been a cuss word on some days. But I am passionate about women, veteran entrepreneurship, and leaders, and helping women into the federal and commercial marketplace. I seek to be a small hinge opening doors for many women to enter. My dream is that there will be a $10 billion federal contract, and it will be an all-female veteran team. And as we know, we work hard. We have been through many things as women veterans, whether it's military sexual trauma, narcissistic behavior, misogynist, whether we've been marginalized, minimalized, but yet we have survived, and now we are seeking entrepreneurship. And I just am honored to have Dr. Tiffany here, who's a clinical psychologist who is helping us not only better understand how our brain works and how our brain and our thoughts are tied to our spirituality. And that is the key, in her professional opinion, to the road to recovery. She is the author of Peace After Combat. I believe that book is available on Amazon. And we've had some amazing questions from some dynamo women. We've had Renita Alexander, CEO of Leadership Unlocked. We have Allie, who is a CEO and founder of Moxie, a group of 40,000 plus, a network of 40,000 plus women across the nation. And then we have Jolisa Dudley, who is also an Air Force veteran and is a divorce coach and a proven leader within the United States Air Force and the Department of Veteran Affairs. So with that, do we have any other folks who would like to ask questions? If not, go ahead, Jaleesa, and ask your next question.
I had a question, GI.
Oh, hey, Vaughn. Of course. Thank you, lady.
Hey, so thank you for this topic. Thank you for the room. Thank you, Dr. Tiffany. And I want to speak to you. Well, let me first do my 4G. So
Thank
I am
you.
Vaughn, retired Air Force veteran. I am coming in from Dallas, Texas. And my goal, my 60-day goal, was it 30-day goal, GI?
30-day goal, and what you're grateful for.
Okay, so I am grateful for this conversation tonight. My 30-day goal is to continue in my personal healing. So Dr. Tiffany, this is so amazing that you would be here tonight. And I'm going to speak not from the veteran. I want to speak to you from the patient, right? While you're there in El Paso, what I've learned is that there are limited services provided across our Veterans Administration. I too have been an employee of the Dallas, Texas VA. So I've learned the medical system inside as an employee, but also greater so as a patient. And you said so much this evening, in these last hour, that I've taken 3 pages of notes. I can't keep up, but I want to go back to the disparity of care. You mentioned that there's so many now asking for help. Well, I want to say in June, going through my my recent divorce, I did have a breakdown. I called the crisis hotline. I was that close to giving up. The resources were not readily available. Even when I made it to the emergency room and the medical provider called over to the mental health clinic, and I'm being very transparent here because perhaps someone else really needs to know when you don't get the help you're asking for. Let me say this, it takes a lot of courage for us to first ask for help. When we have been taught to suppress so much for the mission, asking for help, you don't want to hear no, you don't want to hear not right now. I could not fathom being told it would be 6 weeks before they could even assign me a mental health provider or a counselor. 6 weeks. And I said, I need help now. I need help tonight. I can't bear this pain another day. I was highly medicated and I refused inpatient. I said, no, I will not become a statistic. I have walked the wards of our mental health clinic for 9.5 years as an employee. I will not allow you to provide me that level of treatment when I know that there's other various therapies available. They were not willing to offer me that. I was denied community care. You talked about the different arts for therapy. You talked about the equine. I was denied all of that, but I knew that they were available. And I knew they were available because as a manager at the VA, many of my subordinates that were all men were part of those programs. So I had the knowledge to ask for what I knew was available to me. When you talk about the brain is always looking for closure and how we suppress our experiences, that was me, and it is me. So I can say here tonight that my next 30-day goal is my continued healing. I have asked for the REM treatment. I was told we don't do that here. I have been asked for outside community care. Refer me to the outside. Well, your primary care provider has to do that. So it's this whole cycle. And it's a painful cycle when you're fighting a system. And to have my mental health assessor tell me that night in that emergency room at the Dallas VA, she said, what has kept you this long must be your faith in a higher power. Because what you're telling me you have experienced, I have lost patients with lesser issues than what you're explaining. I don't take any accolades for that. I know it's been by the grace of God. I know that. So I'm asking you as a patient, and yes, I know I don't want you to cross any HIPAA laws, any of that, but speak to the veteran when they're not getting the help. I recently asked for someone experienced with trauma. Don't send me to talk with someone that cannot make that connection. You talked about the epigenetics of victims of our own DNA. Oh my God, that is huge to me because that opens up another window for me to better understand, to better ask, and to better be able to continue my healing. This is so broad, and GI, I keep telling you, we need to have a month-long retreat. We need a full month where we're coming to your place, and we're not coming because we have chemical dependency. We're coming for prevention, GI. So I'm Vaughn, and I release the mic.
Vaughn, thank you so much. You're funny. We'll talk more. Dr. Tiffany, over to you.
Vaughn, I love it. Let's convince her. Let's do this. I'm on board. We need to have such an awesome spiritual retreat of some sort. I think that this is a divine connection here. Sister, thank God that you are alive today. Thank God for your testimony because it's shedding light for so many people who are stuck in the same situation. My blood boils for the experience that you had. I can tell you my husband just recently medically retired from the Army in July and has yet to receive his first behavioral health appointment. He did medically retire for PTSD, traumatic brain injury, you name it, he got it. And he hasn't gotten a call yet to sit down with his therapist, just basic risk assessments. Let me tell you, from two ends, it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating from your end. I don't even know how you endure it. All the phone calls you have to make, the ins and the outs that you have to know and understand, right? It's tedious. It's 100% tedious. But think of it too from our perspective as therapists, how frustrating it is because there's not enough of us. And we went into this world to heal, to help speak life and love over so many people. And it's unfortunate that evidence-based practice says, hey, be seen at least weekly or every other week. That's sufficient depending on your treatment plan. But when we can't see our patients because we have this pressure to get as many in as possible, and we're not seeing them maybe once a month, once every 6 weeks, and we can't see therapeutic gains, and we can't pour our heart into it the way that we would, we get burnout too. It's insane. I pray that people are becoming behavioral health providers because it sounds to me, ever since the pandemic, and this has been an influx since the pandemic. I know this has happened prior to. The system has not been where it needs to be. But since the pandemic has caused a lot of turmoil, people coming to seek the behavioral health treatment they need, and just not enough therapists in the world to answer that calling. You know, God turns beauty for ashes through testimony. But one of the things that I've noticed he turned beauty for ashes for during the pandemic was this virtual care. So we never fathomed how incredible virtual could be. Right now we can work from home, we can reduce gas emissions, we can help save our planet in that way, we can connect people we wouldn't have otherwise, we can be with our families instead of being overseas. So here's the thing, it's helped with behavioral health. The evidence has shown that virtual behavioral health therapy is just as effective as face-to-face. Believe it or not, the evidence shows that and demonstrates it. For individual therapy sessions, not reflected for group sessions, however. And so that's phenomenal. We have to utilize that. If there's not enough providers in your local area to do a face-to-face, you know, at least we have the opportunity now to seek other services. We've been using Telemind with the Army because they accept TRICARE, and pushing a lot of our soldiers out there. And they're providers across the globe, probably even across the world, as long as they have a license in the United States of America to practice. So that has been a blessing. But the bottom line here is the government's not answering the call. We don't have enough behavioral health providers. It's just a issue that is unprecedented and unforeseen. I think the beauty of all of this is that people are becoming true to themselves. The Bible says that the truth shall set you free. Thank goodness for celebrities and doctors and all kinds of people who have a great following, great influencers out there who say, you know what, mental health is real. I have mental health issues. And now everybody's getting to a point where we're recognizing we're all human and we could all benefit from a therapist, to include myself. Thank you very much. And people are reaching out now. So now we need more therapists, and we're oversaturated. I feel your pain. I feel your pain for my husband, for your sake. I feel pain as a provider and a psychologist. I want to help make a way. I want God to use me as a vessel so that we can part that Red Sea that truly exists in this moment when it comes to the realm of behavioral health. Over and out.
Yes, thank you for that. So I know a service provider, she recently got awarded a contract for Region 3 and 4 with TRICARE. And she tells me that there are multiple. She says, I've got 82 therapists, but the VA is not releasing the patients to us. So when I asked to go outside of my network and utilize those virtual therapists, I was told no by my primary care professional. Now I can sign up with them and pay out of pocket. But the essence of the fact, Dr. Tiffany, is I should not have to. When I can't get the care here for a 6-week period, I should be able to connect with whomsoever is available, especially when we're talking about trauma. So I appreciate your wisdom that you're sharing with us tonight. Again, I've got 4 pages of notes. I would definitely like a follow-up, a workshop to even talk about the things that we're still divinely working on, how God has given us favor to migrate through them, and he's keeping us here. But I want to be whole. Mm-hmm. I really want to be whole. I want a day without pain. It may be my thorn in the flesh that he may not divinely and miraculously heal me, but I want better tools and mechanisms in dealing with the pain. And again, G.I., I thank you for creating this room, but I'll say for me, a much deeper need, because what I never want to do is open up a wound and there's no salve. There's no healing process. So thank you so much. And I'm still going to pressure you for that 30-day retreat because we need it. God bless all of you. I'm Vaughn, and I release the mic.
Vaughn, I love your heart. I love your spirit. I'm praying right now that God will bless you, heal you, every fiber, in your body, that He will give you the quality of life that you desire in Jesus' name. I'm laughing because you are putting pressure on me, but I received the prompting. I believe that is the Holy Spirit, and I will commit. I don't know about 30 days, but we may have to do part of it virtually and then part of it in person. And I pray that Dr. Tiffany and others who feel a leading will join us. So thank you, Vaughn. So I know we have, this is the GI Factor. I'm going to reset real quick. We have about 40 minutes left, and I want to get as many questions as we can. I know that we have, we've had quite a few questions. We had just heard from Vaughn, who has her own safety and risk assessment business. She's an Air Force veteran. She is passionate about the health and wealth of women and others. You always hear her opening rooms and providing space, like she said, for women to talk about their hurts and challenges, and she's always seeking. We also heard from the divorce coach, Jolisa Dudley, who is an Air Force veteran and a civilian with the Department of Veteran Affairs, and she is writing a article and is always out there telling people about how important it is to navigate that road to recovery after a divorce. And next we have Daniel. Hey, Daniel, who is from Legrity, what is it? Legrity Media. And I know that he is I believe, an Army veteran, if I remember correctly. And if not, correct me when I'm done. But he is all about giving a space for creators and podcasters to showcase their thought leadership and their talents. So Daniel, welcome to the GI Factor. Please start out with your G4. I already said what your name was, but and if I need to correct any information that I just gave, please do. But the second thing is, tell us where you're geographically located, what you're grateful for, and a 30-day goal. And then ask your question or make a comment.
So Daniel Faust, Dover, Delaware. 30-day goal is to get more positive content creators to Legrity Media. And I'm thankful for each and every one of you as you go over and serve the female veteran and community. And my question is to Dr. Tiffany. As a husband and a father and a coworker, I wanted to see if you can give us 2 to 3 tips on how us men can support the ladies through their health and wealth, and that they don't get to burn out.
Oh my goodness. Daniel, I love your humility. I love where your heart is. Happy wife, happy life. You're the best. Thank you for asking that question. I think that in marriage in general, it's about surrendering to one another. I remember reading the book, The Shack by William P. Young. It was very inspirational for me. And there was this one question that Mac in The Shack, he's the main character, so figure it rhymes, right? So he actually went to talk to the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and they're sitting in a room together at a table having dinner. And he goes up to them and he says, which one of you is in charge? And they all laugh, and they laugh in synchrony with one another, right? And they say, that's the problem with you humans, is that you always have to have hierarchy. But the thing is, I created you for relationship. And when there is hierarchy, you lose relationship. And when you lose relationship, you lose love. And they say in unison, we are in perfect surrender to one another. There's not one of us that's in charge. And so with that being said, I think a beautiful surrender into how you both help one another, thinking about each other's 5 love languages, and promoting that source of love and light to the other person, right? My husband is fantastic. He calls himself my executive officer. And he always asks what he can do for me, how he can be a servant to me. And I do my best, my very, very best to emulate that for him. What can I do for you? What can I do to make your life easier? You seem stuck right now. Is it something that I can do to help you process or digest your experience? Know that I'm here with you and I'm in for the long haul, no matter what it takes. So I think the bottom line is not telling them what to do, but ask them, what do you need from me? Do you just need a 5-minute foot massage? Is your love language? Is it physical touch? Come on, let's get on the couch and cuddle for the next 30 minutes. I'll rub your head while you watch, some celebrity reality TV show. Right? And so with all that being said, it's surrendering to one another. For me, in a spiritual household, is surrendering to God, and surrendering to God and surrender to one another. So beautiful question. Thank you so much for just being a force multiplier to your family and just making a way for them. I do appreciate that. Thank you for your support, Daniel.
Awesome. Daniel, did you have a follow-up or anything before we move? We have 3 other folks who have joined us on the stage.
Yeah, I knew how to apply that with my wife, but I'm also talking on the factor of not only wife, but daughters and also coworkers. Like me and Allie work together. So looking at it from that perspective, from the boardroom, how would I support people like you as working as a force together for your health and your wealth?
I think that's very considerate of you. And I believe that just taking a moment to sit with somebody and knowing about their family and what's going on in their life, and just making that simple conversation that it's not just about the work person, but the whole person that we need to take into account, the physical, spiritual, psychological well-being of that person. So just getting to know what their lives are about, what their battle rhythm is at work and at home, not in a way that is intrusive, but in a way that they feel comfortable disclosing. And for you just to ask simple questions, then how is your husband? Or how is, Jane, your daughter, right? Those things are so important. And when you also have the time just to maybe once a month or so stop by somebody's office and say, what can I do to make your life better or easier? I do value you as your boss or whatever role you have. Is there anything that I can do to assist you? And it's just somebody listening and giving us that emotional pause is so validating and reinvigorating. It may not be much on your end that you feel like you're doing, but it means the world to us on the other side. Over and out.
I agree. And, I want to add to what Dr. Tiffany said. This is GI. Many times, people try to give us help that we don't want in a way that we don't need. Or if we ask for help, they help us in the way they think they should when that may not be. So I think it's just as important to ask how, what can I help with and what does that help look like? So awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Daniel. Looks like he dropped off. I don't know where Daniel went, but we now have Lauren. Hey, Lauren, how are you, lady? Thank you so much for joining us. Lauren is a military wife and coach, and she's author of a bestseller. Tell us your G4. The bestseller is called Camouflage Love, and it's a memoir. Tell us your G4. I've already said your name. Tell us where you're geographically located, what you're grateful for, and a 30-day goal. And folks that are in the room over here in Clubhouse, please connect and follow each other. Or message. That's what I love about this new thing. There's that little arrow on the right bottom side of the screen where you can direct message people that if you think there's some collaboration or opportunities to support each other. So Lauren, go ahead. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Yes. So I actually live in McKinney, Texas, which is just like north of Dallas. And what I'm grateful for.
Yes.
So I'm grateful for just therapies and insurance. We have 4 kids, and my son that's on the autism spectrum has been having a really rough time lately with some self-harm, trying stuff. So I'm just really grateful for people like Dr. Tiffany that can help us. And then my goal for the next 30 days is I have been a parent coach before, but I just started my new business. And so I think getting some new clients and maybe collaboration, and I'm trying to figure out if I need to turn my business into a nonprofit, because I want to help people and I don't want money to be the factor of people not getting help. So that's me, and I think I answered all the questions, right?
You did. And what's your question for Dr. Tiffany?
So my question for Dr. Tiffany is, it's kind of along the lines of, well, the person before me had talked about like what can he do to support like women in like women veterans. And I was just thinking, just like Dr. Tiffany, my husband is also a veteran, so we're both veterans. I never deployed, so he has combat PTSD, but I have PTSD from a MST. And so I find a lot of times that a lot of stuff is put on me because, I don't know, I guess because I'm mom, I don't know. So like if my husband's having a bad day, I know that like he wants to help, but he can't. But I don't feel like I ever really get to have bad days. And so I guess this is more of a personal question, so I don't know if she'll want to answer it, but like, what do you do if you're having a bad day? Like, how do you do that if you're like both you and your partner are kind of struggling? And I think that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having the courage to ask that. From a personal perspective, what I do when we're both having a bad day. I need to go on a run. I need to make time for myself. I need to take my hot bubble bath. I need to sit outside. I need to listen to my worship music. I know my go-tos. I know my resets, and so does he. Do I recognize when he's being triggered? Absolutely. When he's being triggered as a Christian woman, and just as a Christian, not as a woman, because he does the same thing for me as a man, but he prays over me. And if we're both having a bad day together, we come together. If we know that we're exceptionally volatile, if we come together, we give ourselves space, time to decompress. But if we're not, and we're just in a funk, and we're sad, or we're feeling lazy, we'll come together, we'll pray over ourselves, and just enjoy the moment. Just being mindful, watching some TV together, being in bed, and giving ourselves permission to be whatever it is we have to be in that moment in order to be able to regroup ourselves. I hear you when you say you're mom and you always have to be on. I understand that for being a mom myself. But you have to also be cautious about the behaviors that you enable in other people. And be mindful of, do you cater too much? And does this result in a sense of enablement that makes the other person, actually worsens the other person's symptoms unbeknownst to them? Just being mindful of those things, and also giving yourself permission to take the breath that you need to take. Thank you so much for asking the question. Over and out.
Lauren, was that helpful for you? Or did you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, no, I think that was helpful. I just, I know I just need to be more better at self-care and like carving it out, and maybe even finding someone that if like, I mean, it doesn't happen often, but like if I'm overwhelmed, because like I said, we have our son that's on the spectrum, plus we each have our own things going on, like mentally, like bad anxiety and stuff. So I just need to make like taking care of myself a priority, and finding someone who I could reach out to if my husband is also struggling, so that I could still like maybe have a break. So, thank you so much.
Does Lauren, I know when I was in the Air Force, and you know, I've after 27 years I've retired, and it's been about 10 years since I've been in, but there used to be family daycare providers who could, I forgot it used to be like give them a break kind of day, or, I'm just thinking if there's any program like that where you're located. Also, I don't know if you're, a member of some of the autism support groups. There may be something there as well. And I know it's probably, I don't know. I'm not going to say I do know because I don't have a child with autism, but I can imagine that it's tough to admit that you need help.
Yes, thank you. So we're both out of the Army now, so I don't know if any of those programs are really available for like veterans.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's kind of why, that's why I want to help people and do like what I do, try and help other moms, because I just feel like, whether you're a veteran or just like a military spouse, there's just a lot that gets put on you, just, I think, being in the role of mom. So anyway, thank you so much for...
Well, Lauren, I just want to say we need you to be whole so you can help more people too, right? So that's why I was asking. And if I run across any resources or any of the ladies in the room, if we, follow Lauren here on Clubhouse, if you hear or know of any resources, please, DM her, reach out to her, and support, because that's what this room is all about. It's about, connection, collaboration. That's why I ask people to be transparent and tell about their goals or their challenges, because there's always a resource in the room. So thank you so much, and bless you. You are an angel, out on loan, because I can only imagine, how tough that is. So next we have Ina. And this is the GI Factor. Let me reset real quick. It's 7:37. We're scheduled to end at 8 o'clock. So if you have a question, comment for Dr. Tiffany, who is a certified clinical psychologist. She's an Air Force veteran. She is an author of the book Peace After Combat. And she is a unapologetic Christian, which I'm so proud of that. And she is talking to us and providing insight into to how we can come, get on the road to recovery in a spiritual and a mental way. So with that, go ahead and let's hear from who's it, Lisa? Please give your G4, greet everybody, give us your geographical location, what you're grateful for, and a goal or need.
Okay, well, I am so happy to say hello to all of you sisters and to be here. I haven't been on Clubhouse since like Monday. And so my name is Lisa Whitesell, and I am outside of Phoenix, Arizona, and I am grateful. One of my children, my first one to get married, wedding was yesterday, and I have a bunch of kids, so I have little ones to rest and get there on time, and so it's a relief to have triumphed and adapted and overcome through all that wonderful situation. I'm grateful for restoration of health. I had some kind of sore throat this week, and I couldn't talk or anything, and I feel like I'm back to 100%, and I give God glory for that, and that these are, answered prayers. And what was the other one?
Goal. Yes, ma'am.
30-day goal.
Mm-hmm.
So I make my living for the most part. I mean, my husband also has businesses and works really super hard. We've been married almost 24 years. But my
big thing that pays the bills is that I teach and sell about natural medicine, essential oils, and nutrition. And I lead a team of women that do that. And so I have a goal in the next 30 days to begin working with 2 more what we call builders, people that are in it for a bigger purpose and reaching out and sharing with everybody else, not just taking care of their own personal needs. So I am so excited to hop back on Clubhouse and to find you guys and this wonderful topic and these great shares. So many great thoughts. A lot of gratitude for being in a great marriage, and I hope that my son and his wife will keep building this kind of relationships and taking care of each other in those, down in the trenches ways. Because we all do have rough patches, and having 1 true friend that can pray for you and that can see when you're struggling is really priceless. I appreciate what Vaughn said. I've been out of active duty was probably 25 years now, and I never went to the VA for any kind of care because I thought you had to be like a disabled veteran. And it was not until a couple of years ago with my last pregnancy that my mom said, "Hey, see if you can go to VA." And I was really grateful that worked out really nicely. But I was thinking, with this sore throat that I had, I took care of it myself because I'm just not a person that runs to the doctor all the time. But because I knew if I called them, they'd be like, "Okay, we can get you an appointment in like 4 weeks or something," and that doesn't help you. So my heart just aches for people that need an urgent answer. And I appreciate the awareness to see that there's the disparity because I don't have personal experience with the VA system. But I do have my dad. He's not living anymore, but he struggled with really severe bipolar and attempted suicide a few times, and he was in and out of VA behavioral health and things like that. And I just didn't have the awareness or understanding of anything to do with mental health during a lot of those times. And so I do now, and my personal path has been getting into natural health care and natural, like I said, like the essential oils and vitamins and things. And with 9 children, I now realize postpartum depression and things like that, but also unresolved childhood things, because if you grow up in a home with one parent that is really, extremely broken, there's there's going to be consequences of that. And so I don't feel like I have PTSD from my military service, but just from my life. And I don't know if his was from his military service or not, or generational, things that we've inherited. And so I think we're all touched by the pains of mental health or just mental illness in our world today, whether it's in our own personal experience or that of people we love or neighbors, because it's accumulated through generations, and we're going through such an interesting, difficult time in our history, in our society in so many ways, and we've been squeezed through the eye of the needle, or through the, if you want to put it that way. So I learned on my journey about the ways that people could use the natural plant-based pharmaceutical, chemistry that's straight from nature to replace or augment or help with their their brain chemistry and their endorphins, like all those different things. And I became really passionate about that and with helping kids and with coping strategies and methods. And as a small business owner, it's rough, you guys. It's kind of rough. You probably know this. There's a lot of strong mindset required. And what a blessing to have been through the military and doing hard things and knowing that you really can do a lot. But still, when you have these goals, you have to just keep picking yourself back up after disappointment and, plan changes or unexpected obstacles or all the different things and days when you're tired and all that. And so I have been very careful. I'm so grateful that I've had some friends come in my life, and we've got an accountability group where we give ourselves, we have a group text every morning with our goals for the day, and then we report back in the evening. And I've only been part of this for maybe like 6 or 7 months, and just knowing people care. If you take your vitamins, like you said you're going to, and you go for your walk, or like you're going to go, I'm going to get to the gym today, all those things. And so when times have been really hard, I kind of have that in that support system that I haven't had over all these years as much, of just, I know there's like a term for it that we've heard, that's like your basic safety net, your system,
support network,
even when
all that.
You don't feel like you are consciously able to say, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do this. You're just like, okay, I'm going to get up and I'm going to wash my face and I'm going to take my vitamins and I'm going to pray and it's just there, even if you don't feel like doing it.
So Lisa, Lisa,
I feel like I'm so blessed.
Hey Lisa, would you like Dr. Tiffany to have an opportunity to comment or respond?
That would be great. I'm going to wrap this up. I also wanted to say that if you guys look at my bio and you see that along my path, I kind of wanted to give a background on that. I've gotten the opportunity for myself to learn some therapy techniques called joy coaching, which is a Christ-centered relaxation and emotional release therapy using all the senses and music. And I do have the ability to do that like over a Zoom call if necessary. And so please know that you can reach out to me if you need something immediately in the meantime. That was what I really wanted to get on the stage and say to everybody in the room, that if you're at a place where you need some immediate someone to lean on and some strength, that is one of my callings, and that's what has got me here.
Beautiful.
So thank you. My name is Lisa, and I'm complete, and thank you for your time to respond. And all of you that have contributed, I really feel blessed and edified, and appreciate what you shared.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your transparency and authenticity. Dr. Tiffany, would you like to have some words for Lisa? And then next we'll go to Miss Roberta Moore.
Lisa, just stay true to yourself. And I'm so glad that there's another sister out there willing to bring forth her services to supply you all. God bless.
Beautiful. Well, we are at 7:45, 7:46, somewhere along in there, and 7:48. Oh my God. Thank you so much for joining the GI Factor. We are here every Friday from 7 to 8 p.m. We are broadcasting on Wisdom. Thank you, Wisdom audience. We have about 71 listeners over on Wisdom. And in addition, we've got folks on Clubhouse and Facebook and LinkedIn, and we are joined by Dr. Tiffany Tajiri, certified psychologist, Air Force veteran officer, and we have been having some amazing conversations, and that really is what the GI Factor is all about, is just collaborating, inspiring, and supporting each other as women, veteran entrepreneurs, and leaders. And I'm so honored that we have Miss Roberta Moore of Amora Solutions. She is one of the first in the cohort, the Vet Biz Lady cohort, which was a group of 29 women who came in to learn more about doing business with the Department of Veteran Affairs. She has just been a tremendous supporter, and she's an amazing woman, I should say, woman of God, woman of faith. She's all about the wealth and the health. And so thank you so much for joining us, Roberta. You have a question or a comment for Dr. Tiff?
Wow, thank you, GI, for that introduction. I was gonna do my G4 and greet everyone on the stage. Hello, everybody. So good to see everybody. And I wanted to say hello to my fleshly sister in the audience. She's following me around, which is cool. Patrice. And then, is it okay for me to do it, Gia? Is it okay for me to do my G4?
Absolutely.
Or just ask a
No,
question?
absolutely. Go ahead, because I forgot. I didn't forget about you. Sorry, I skipped over you, lady.
Oh, okay. So I'm grateful for my health and strength. I wholeheartedly believe health is wealth. I'm thankful for being healthy mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially. And so I'm grateful for those things. I've greeted everyone. Geographically, I'm located in the DMV, the DC metropolitan area, Washington metropolitan area. And then my goals are to continue to help others to meet their goals, their financial goals, and to help others in any other way that I can with their health and their wealth. So that's really what I'm working on, and that includes my family and my children. So I'm Miss Amore, and I'm done speaking.
So did you have a question for Dr. Tiffany?
A question for Dr. Tiffany.
We can come back to you.
Okay.
Dr. Tiffany is on the row below you. She's our special guest today. And she's just been asking questions or providing responses. So I know recently you experienced a loss, and I just didn't know if you had any questions, but we can come back and go to Ina first.
Okay, now that you said that, I may have a question, but I'll let Ina go.
Okay, awesome. Hey, Lady Ina.
Hello.
Another amazing woman. I'm sorry, hon.
I was telling Roberta she had her question now. She can ask it. But for me, go ahead, Roberta.
You sure? Okay, so I had a great loss in my family in reference to a suicide, and I was wondering. I just felt so bad because I felt like the person had been suffering and in pain for 20 years, and we did not see it. And I wasn't around the person; it was my ex-husband. But I felt a great loss, and I felt as though he was in pain and there was no one there to help him. So it's almost somewhat like a guilt. I don't feel like I own it, but I just feel like maybe there's something we could have done.
I'm so sorry for your loss, dear sister. My condolences and prayers to you. Earlier, we were talking about life being somewhat of a spiritual warfare, and I believe that the enemy can only be as powerful as we allow the enemy to be. So unabashedly, I come from a Christian perspective, and I believe in the spiritual warfare from the psychological mindset as well. And I believe the more we feel guilt for something that we could not control, or if we had a crystal ball to predict the future, then we may have done things differently because hindsight's 20/20. But in reality, we do not, and we do our best in the present moment, and we all have our own lives, and we all have our own set of problems.
that we reach out when we can, and we make ourselves known, that we're available to those who need us. And sometimes that's all we can do. And I believe the enemy wants people to stay stuck, especially when it comes to a sensitive subject like suicide. The enemy wants you to be stuck on the should have, could have, and would have, because the more you're stuck, the less productive you can be, and the more congested your vessel is. The more congested our vessel is, the less love and light we can pour out to the rest of the world. So my advice to you is simply understand that you did the best within the context that you had, and you ruminating over this multiple times over and having some anxiety or sadness towards it, allow yourself to experience that for a moment, but don't drown in it. Don't get stuck to the point where you can't get yourself back up. Give yourself grace the way that God has given you grace, and believe in a God who is a loving God, who states that nothing can separate us from the love of God, nor height, nor depth, nor angels, nor demons, nor principalities. Nothing that we can do can separate us from the perfect love of God for you and for the one that you lost. So with that being said, do not let the enemy take over your mind. Be free in that spiritual warfare. I pray for you. Love and light over your life. Over and out.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Beautiful,
And that was
beautiful.
good.
Go ahead, Lady Ina Myers, also one of the pioneering women, part of the first Vet Biz Lady cohort. She has gone from constructing houses to now helping women reconstruct their lives after experiencing a narcissistic relationship. What is your question, lady? And welcome to your G4. Greet everybody, tell where you're geographically located, what you're grateful for, and a goal or a need.
Thank you. My name is Ina Johnson Myers. I am currently in the Atlanta, Georgia area. I'm grateful for peace and the fact that God answers prayers. My 30-day goal, I think, is just to build my client base. But what I want to say first to Roberta, as a person that has contemplated suicide many times, I heard my spirit to say that. You can't do anything to help that. Even if you would have stopped one attempt, if that was still something that I wanted to do, I would have done it, tried it again. So there's nothing you could have done for that. So let that go, babe. Dr. Tiffany, my question to you, because, with VA doing a lot of telehealth now, what is your, and I know it's a good thing for the most part, but for people that suffer from PTSD like me, when they evaluate you at home, that's your comfort place. That's totally different than if I had to drive, 20, 30 minutes in traffic dealing with people to get to them to have an evaluation. How do you change that, or not necessarily you, me as the patient? How can I combat that? Because currently they've reduced my PTSD because I'm calmer at home. What is something that other than having a lie to do, which I refuse, but what is something that I can do on my part to not let something like that happen again?
Well, I think, and I know, and I believe firmly that you are probably one to truly advocate. You have a beautiful voice, and you're very articulate and well-spoken. So I don't doubt that you advocate for yourself in the realm of mental health and your medical treatment. If you feel that you do better with face-to-face, I would advocate for that as well, even if you need a referral to the network. And I also believe, too, that we can look at it from both ways. Being in the comfort of your own home is something that can bring the guards down more quickly and make you more amenable to bonding with your therapist and enhancing the therapeutic alliance, which is proven to be where the majority of progress emanates from. right? Or I see it from a perspective as well, where you could tell your therapist, hey, I am in my own environment. This is my safe haven that I've created for myself. So you're not going to see the natural visceral reaction of being in a novel environment, for example, in your office. So here I've already practiced my deep breathing and centering myself. I'm ready to engage and I'm ready for treatment, but please make it known that my anxiety is real and it may not be something that you can recognize through behavioral observation over the screen in my own home. It might not accurately reflect that, but you can ask your therapist to give you an assessment like the GAD-7, which assesses your anxiety, a PHQ-9 for depression, outcome measures is what they call them, or a PCL-5 for PTSD, and you can score yourself on those and give them the score so they understand where your anxiety is at within your own mind. Great question. I love the authenticity of it. Thank you so much for asking. Over and out.
Thank you.
So I'd like to ask you a question, Dr. Tiffany. Or really just kind of tell a scenario. So I have been diagnosed by the top neuropsychologist at Johns Hopkins with PTSD. And I tell people my greatest battle has not been in the Air Force, but it has been after the Air Force. And, I'll spare the ugly details because the details are ugly. But what I find is that I'm seeking to be vulnerable and transparent because I know you can't have an open door and a closed door at the same time. If you're closed off to protect yourself, you're also not open to love, and you're not vulnerable, because I have issue with trusting people, and because I have been mentally abused, marginalized, sabotaged, etc., and work in a very toxic, hostile environment. How can I better deal with triggers when people I like to laugh and tell people, you're dealing with an abused woman. And I think that's a reality, that even though most days I'm good, when I don't engage, I turn off. It's like my mind, literally, there's a switch and I go into this shutdown mode, and I just don't respond. Or if I'm under stress, I may respond, but it is when that I have that response, it is as a abused woman, or if I put in a quote, somebody would say maybe it's the mad Black woman. But there's a lot that's underneath that, and there's a reason why I'm responding to that. So how do you open up and still remain protected, if that's even possible?
What a great question, Gia. I appreciate your vulnerability. Well, God says for us to guard our hearts, and that's so important. And we have to pray for the wisdom to ascertain when is the right time to express that vulnerability and when it is not. When the person before us is either a divine connection or not. And that discernment is going to be key. I don't want you to feel as though you are a victim. You are a survivor. You are more than a conqueror through Christ. You are victorious. The more you start to believe that, the more you start to say that, yes, you might not feel it, but you will eventually feel it the more you say it, because the mind can override the brain very easily and very quickly. When you do get triggered, I want you to identify what those triggers are. Do they have patterns? What's their consistency? How do you feel? What transpired? What time of day was that trigger? Who triggered you? And start to break it down so you can understand where that core belief, that stuck point resides within your subconscious that allows you to become triggered. And when you're able to identify it, then you're able to stop it. Then you're able to reverse it with different sorts of strategies that you may create for yourself or your therapist can guide you to. But as Brene Brown states, vulnerability is the birthplace for joy. So you have to be vulnerable. You don't walk around with your heart exposed or wearing your heart in your sleeve for everyone. You do not cast your pearls before swine, but rather selectively through God's wisdom and the Holy Spirit leading you, allow those certain people who you believe are divine connections to come into your life and to disclose with wisdom. And I believe true healing will come, but it starts with one, not identifying yourself as I am PTSD. I didn't hear that from you, but I don't want any of my sisters out there thinking that they are that walking diagnosis, because you're not. Your brain is malleable. Your brain is changeable. We can neuroplastically rewire your brain, and you can begin neuroplastically rewiring it by calling yourself all of the good things that God has called you to be more than a conqueror, to be victorious, to be upheld in the right hand, right? To be beautiful, to be love, to be harmony, to be peace. You are all those things. The Lord did not give you a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And that is something that we have to believe, that we have to speak over ourselves and convince ourselves we're in our lowest moment. So vulnerability is key, but it is necessary for you to guard your heart, have wisdom and discernment in when to be vulnerable and who to be vulnerable with. Over and out.
Powerful, powerful, powerful. Well, before I give you the opportunity to say the last words, because we are a few minutes over, and it's of course my fault, but I would like I want to take an excerpt from a speech that I gave in 2013 when I received an award from the Women Veterans Rock organization. And I'm going to ask everyone on stage to unmic. And if those of you who are in the audience, you want to come up, I'm going to invite you to speak if you'd like to participate. But I am going to ask everyone to unmic. And when I read this statement, to respond with Women Veterans Rock. Women Vets Rock. Women Vets Rock. So what makes me a veteran? My selfless service to this great nation. And the response is Women Veterans Rock.
Rock.
What makes me a woman?
Women Vets Rock.
What makes me a woman? My confidence in my heart and intuition. Women Veterans Rock.
Women Veterans Rock.
What makes me weak? My fears, my negative thoughts about myself, my situation. But I am more than equal to anything that I might face in life. Women Veterans Rock.
Women Vets Rock.
What makes me whole? My faith and my family. Women Veterans Rock. What keeps me standing? My God, courage, and determination. And the response is Women Veterans Rock. What makes me honest? My integrity. Women Veterans Rock. What sustains my mind? My quest for knowledge, purpose, love, peace, and joy. Women Veterans Rock. What teaches me all lessons, my mentors, my mistakes, and my experiences. Women Veterans Rock.
Women Vets Rock.
What lifts my head high? My pride, not my arrogance. What defines me and confines me? My God, my purpose, and my view of myself. The response is Women Veterans Rock. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to give Dr. Tiffany the last word. I cannot thank you enough, my sister, in the spirit. Your amazing service to this great nation continues in the work that you're doing. I can tell it is not just a mission for you, but it is a ministry. And I'd like to give you the opportunity to close us out.
Thank you so much, GI. You are so blessed and anointed. And I pray that God continues to have his hand over you as you lead so many others to him and to give them hope and faith in a better tomorrow. So I give thanks to you. You are the salt of the earth and light of the world. But sisters, here's the last question I ask. What is the visual in your mind? Because it's your brain's responsibility to convert that visual into complementary chemistry that impacts your whole being, spiritually, psychologically, and physically. All right, sisters. So be blessed and be blessed to be a blessing.
Wow, what an amazing time. Can you all please give love to Dr. Tiffany? How she blessed us so richly with her presence and with her knowledge and with her spirit. Thank you, Dr. Tiff. And with that, that is the end of the GI Factor today. This has been one of my favorite sessions. And I hope, Dr. Tiff, you will come back and join us again. I'd love to have you monthly, but you are welcome anytime. Your knowledge and spirit are just amazing. Thank you, folks on Wisdom, for joining us, and for LinkedIn and Facebook. Any to engage with you on Wisdom, but I'm happy to let you all come up if you have any questions.